Good evening, guys, and the 0.0001% of women that might watch this channel. Hey, we're going to take a look at a magazine game published by Strategy and Tactics Press. It's World at War magazine issue number 58, published back in February, March of 2018. We get advertisements here in the front. Some more advertisements here in the front. And table of contents. We have a number of articles, different departments, different things they talk about. Magazine's great. It always has been. Beautiful artwork. Pictures. Illustrations. Diagrams. I mean, you can't really beat this information. And they're well thought out. Look at the maps. Beautiful maps. The articles are pretty well in depth, pretty well researched. The magazine is awesome. So here we get to the game included in this magazine. It's called Stalin Moves West. It's described as a strategic level simulation of a potential World War II campaign in which the Third Reich did not invade the Soviet Union in 1941 and instead launched an invasion of Central and Western Europe. The game has several different scenarios which look at various situations in which such a war might have occurred. So this is a hypothetical, but I like hypothetical games. This one seems really interesting. They did not invade the Soviet Union, and instead, Stalin invaded Central and Western Europe. But why would Germany let them do that? I don't know. That kind of doesn't make sense. I'm trying to understand why Germany would allow them to invade Central and Western Europe. But anyway, the map scale doesn't really say. Friendly and enemy units. Who designed this? Joe Miranda's designed this. Here's a great illustrations. Very clear of what everything on a unit means. Here's your different types of units that may be represented in this game. Security, partisan, fortress, airborne, cav, amphibious, mountain, shock troops, combined arms, infantry, armor, mechanized, anti-aircraft, Axis, allied, mobile forces. What is this? There's no tanks down here. That might be, they may have, well, that may be just an organizational thing. Anyway, here's a basic infantry unit, attack factor, defense factor, and then movement allowance. And then, of course, the unit size up here at the top, which may or may not affect things. It depends on what stacking is. Here's a headquarters unit. Looks like it has a lot more going on. Instead of an attack factor, it has a support factor. And then, of course, a defense and movement allowance. Support radius up here. In this case, this headquarters could support units within 3 hexes. Supply units, which have a support multiplier, a defense factor, movement allowance, and again, a support radius. And then air base. Support, defense, movement, and range. Okay. It's going over the nationalities by color and such. It's going over charts and tables. Here in section 3, it's the setup. Section 4 is going over victory conditions. Sequence 5 is the sequence of, or Section 5 is a sequence of play. Soviet players go first. They have a mobilization phase, a movement phase, a combat phase, an exploitation phase, and then maybe an extra exploit combat phase. And then the Axis goes, in which they have a mobilization phase, a reorganization phase, then movement, combat, and then the 2 exploit phases that the Soviets also get. Here we going over the map. Front lines, hex control, mobilization points. That's how you purchase new units and so forth. Here it's going over reinforcements and mobilization. Reorganization, which is only, I think, for the Axis. Yeah. I think maybe he can break down certain units and reform them. Movement phase. There's an exploit movement. Stacking. Combat. Lots of pages about combat. Well, about 1.5 pages on combat. Retreat after combat. Pursuit. Supply rules. Soviet untried units. Headquarters units and their functions and abilities. Then we have a section on unique units, such as fortresses, the Berlin garrison, mountain units, and partisans, airborne operations. We get into the some weather, fog of war, and then the scenarios. Scenario 1, no Barbarossa. The Germans did not launch Operation Barbarossa. Instead, they divert their attention to defeating Britain in the West. The Soviets exploit the opportunity to strike westwards. Fair enough. Scenario 2, preemptive war. With Hitler building up the Wehrmacht in the east for a possible invasion of the United Soviet Socialist Republic, Stalin orders a preemptive strike. Fair enough. Then we get a variant where it says no, there's no Stalin purges. So that would make the Soviets even probably more powerful. But I like this scenario here. No Barbarossa. I think this would be the more interesting one. Well, to me, than this one here, the preemptive one. This one doesn't seem as plausible as this one, I guess. Then it adds some optional rules about air missions, flak units, other things, naval operations. Then we have some charts on the back, mobilization charts. Looks like there's a cost and mobilization points. And then an advertisement, a nice map, and the rest of the magazine. So let's take a look at the counters. They're thin. First thing I noticed. They're pretty thin white. Yeah, they're real thin white core. I mean, I would almost be ashamed to offer this thinness of counters as a magazine game at this time. But this game was published back in 2018. DG has got a lot better about their thickness, their counters, their die cut, and everything. DG, Strategy and Tactics has progressively gotten better. And I think it's been through feedback from players and their subscribers and such. But here's a look at the units. Like we looked at before, first number is the attack. Second number in the middle is the defense, and the last number on the right would be the movement factor. Some headquarters right here. The counters look nice, very clear. The counters look great. They're just thin. And they're double-sided. Well, the Soviets are double-sided. The Germans look like they're just single-sided, but I like that. I like that back side. It's a pretty flag. Now, let's take a look at the map. And of course, you know what's going to happen. You know it's coming. You can see it already. I mean, it's sticking out so far. It's not like you can't help but notice it. And it's so stiff. I apologize, guys, for the hard creases here in this map. The hexes are huge. That's another thing that DG's does from time to time, depending on the game. Look at the size of the hex compared to the size of the counter. The hexes are huge. Map is very clear. The terrain in each hex is very observable. There should be no trouble reading. This map's very functional. I have no trouble with this map. It's not the most pretty map, but it doesn't have to be. There are tables and charts spread out over the edges of the board. And that's a quick look at this game. Thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. Again, this has been a quick look at the game in World at War magazine issue number 58 from February to March 2018.